I think there's a good update when it comes to Flare. Even though nothing I say is financial advice, not too long ago it was announced that Li-Fi is live on Flare. Now some people may be thinking, okay, what is that, right? What is Li-Fi? Now allegedly, Li-Fi, or should I say the Li-Fi protocol, it's one API for seamless swaps and bridging across EVM, and that stands for Ethereum Virtual Machine, and as well as Solana, and as well as Bitcoin. And why do I think it's pretty awesome? It's because even though when I take a look at something like this, I don't think it's necessarily the greatest thing of all time, but I do like the direction nonetheless. Because, for instance, again, if we basically have a project that is one API for seamless swaps and bridging across EVM, and if we take a look at Ethereum, very massive layer one blockchain, we take a look at also Solana, another very massive layer one blockchain, and of course Bitcoin, which of course, biggest thing out there that we have right now within this space. I think that's actually pretty good. And again, seeing that live on Flare, I think that kind of gives a lot of validation actually for something like this. Because again, sometimes people like to think that, oh, Flare isn't really doing much and all this type of stuff. But I think it's actually doing a lot really in the grand scheme of things. And I think it's actually a very impressive project. Now, I'm not telling anyone to do anything when it comes to Flare, but this is just my mentality. However, when it comes to FLR, Flare's native token, at the idea of 25 cents, that still hasn't left my mind. Because, for instance, if we have a project that is the blockchain for data, which I get it isn't necessarily kind of the coolest thing out there, but for instance, we take a look at it allegedly provides developers with decentralized access to data from other chains and the internet. So that, I think that is pretty awesome. And also, not to mention, it's an EVM smart contract platform with two data acquisition protocols. I think that's another pretty cool thing because I think kind of the main takeaway sometimes when I take a look at the two data acquisition protocols, when I take a look at Flare, is not only the data connector, but it's also something called Flare time series oracle. Now, again, these are the two data acquisition protocols. Now, if we take a look at FTSO, stands for Flare time series oracle. That's the native oracle for Flare. And an oracle in this case is basically a data feed that kind of brings data from off the chain, aka off-chain data, and brings that data over into the blockchain. So I think that's pretty awesome considering we've seen kind of the success of Chainlink, and that's heavily focused on oracles. We've already kind of seen how well that did. So I do like what I'm seeing when it comes to something like FTSO. Keep in mind, without off-chain data, many decentralized applications out there, they can't really function properly. So having an oracle, I think, is actually pretty beneficial in the grand scheme of things. However, if we take a look at the data connector, which is the second data acquisition protocol I want to talk about, and that right there is basically for trustless data proofs. Probably not that interesting, but you know what? It's actually pretty okay nonetheless. I think FTSO is what I want to really look into. But again, this is also a pretty good thing, I think, the data connector, because it does enable information from other blockchains and the internet to be used on Flare. So overall, when I take a look at Flare, it doesn't give me the vibe of a project that is bad fundamentally, because I don't think so. Like, for instance, if something like Anchor or Google Cloud was historically, we take a look at a part of the Flare ecosystem, I think that right there is very impressive in and of itself. So again, ultimately speaking, when it comes to the idea of 25 cents, when it comes to FLR, that still hasn't left my mind. And even to me, it doesn't seem like that ridiculous maybe we were to reach that, because market cap at that point, considering current circulating supply, would be around $18 billion. It doesn't seem that ridiculous considering Shiba Inu basically doubled this back in 2021 in terms of market cap. And we've seen Dogecoin exceed that market cap by nearly 70 billion back in 2021 as well. Not to mention 25 cents is around an 11x from here. I get it, it's not going to be the best hypothetical upside, but if Ethereum went to 10 grand, that's less than a 3x from here. And Bitcoin going to 300 grand is also less than a 3x from here. So that's the way to take a look at it. A little bit less than a 3x, it's a little bit boring to me, but I'm not necessarily looking for a microcap either. So I'm not that disappointed with maybe the idea of around an 11x from here. But ultimately speaking, I like the direction in which Flare is heading. Just fundamentally, it seems like it's heading in the right direction in terms of kind of improving upon that. And I think it's kind of a stark contrast sometimes to other projects that, kind of treat it like a part-time thing, I feel like, because they don't really treat the project seriously. And maybe it is in some cases, who knows, like a part-time thing, but This one doesn't feel like that to me. I'm still staying patient because whenever that altcoin season truly does decide to wake up, that is beyond my control. I could pull up a price chart, draw some random triangles, but the market's not going to care. It's not going to listen to me, right? So for what? Why would I do that? I'd rather focus on the fundamentals. I'd rather take a look at the news and just stay patient, hold, and I just wait because that is the only thing that is within my control. So again, I'm still staying patient. I treat it like a patience game, but I'd rather just be prepared than not, which is why I'm holding and just waiting. And that's about it. I'm quite essentially taking a chance. That's the way to take a look at it. But you know what? Whatever happens, I'm still staying patient. But the idea of maybe 25 cents, it doesn't seem like that ridiculous to me if it were to maybe even happen. And also on top of that, when it comes to just Flare overall, I'm still a fan of the fundamentals. And feel free to subscribe if you enjoyed this video. I'd greatly appreciate it. It's Willie the Captain, and I'll catch y'all on the next one. I'm out. Peace. Bye.